In the summer of 1667, England slept soundly, wrapped in a blanket of false security. Along the River Medway, a tributary of the Thames, the pride of the English Navy lay at anchor. Great ships of the line, veterans of fierce battles, rested in the dockyards at Chatham. There was the mighty Royal Charles, the fleet's flagship, a floating fortress adorned with the royal coat of arms. Alongside it were other titans of the sea, their cannons silent, their sails furled. On shore, a sense of invincibility filled the air. English officers conducted leisurely inspections, confident in their nation's maritime supremacy. The river itself seemed to be their greatest defense. A massive iron chain, a seemingly unbreakable barrier, was stretched across the water at Gillingham, designed to stop any hostile fleet in its tracks. Further upriver, forts like Sheerness and Upnor Castle stood as silent sentinels, their guns pointed towards the sea. To the English, an attack on the heart of their naval power was not just improbable, it was unthinkable. Their fleet was the strongest in the world, their river defenses impregnable. They were basking in the afterglow of past victories, believing the Second Anglo-Dutch War was all but won. This misplaced confidence, this hubris, would soon be shattered in the most spectacular and humiliating way imaginable. Across the North Sea, in the dark, candlelit rooms of the Dutch Admiralty, a different mood prevailed. Here, there was no complacency, only cold, hard calculation. Lieutenant Admiral de Ruyter, one of the greatest naval commanders in history, leaned over maps of the Thames estuary. Alongside him was Cornelis de Witt, a brilliant political strategist representing the Dutch government. Together, they were architecting a plan of audacious simplicity and breathtaking risk. The goal was not just to win a battle, but to strike a blow so deep into the heart of England that it would cripple its navy and shatter its morale for a generation. They knew the English were financially exhausted and had laid up their main fleet, believing the war was over. This was their window of opportunity. The Dutch plan hinged on precision, speed, and surprise. They would assemble a powerful fleet, but its most crucial components were the fire ships. These were old vessels packed to the brim with pitch, tar, and gunpowder floating bombs designed to sow chaos and destruction. Every detail was meticulously planned, from the timing of the tides to the navigation of the treacherous sandbanks of the Thames estuary. As the Dutch fleet gathered, a sense of quiet determination settled over the crews. They were not just sailors, they were instruments of national vengeance. They moved in silence, their preparations cloaked by the secrecy of the night. Under the cover of a dense sea fog, the Armada slipped out of its harbors. 60 ships of the line, accompanied by frigates and the all-important fire ships, sailed towards the English coast. They were a ghost fleet, moving unseen and unheard, carrying with them a plan that would redefine the very nature of naval warfare. On the 9th of June, the ghostly Dutch fleet materialized out of the morning mist at the mouth of the Thames. The first line of English defense, the fort at Sheerness, was taken completely by surprise. The fort was undermanned, its defenses incomplete. The few cannons that fired were wildly inaccurate, their shots splashing harmlessly into the water as the Dutch ships sailed past with contemptuous ease. The initial assault was a stunning success, and panic began to ripple through the English defenses. Alarm bells rang, but it was too late. The Dutch were already pushing up the Medway. The next obstacle was the Great Chain at Gillingham. To the English, it was the ultimate deterrent, but the Dutch had come prepared. Under the command of Captain Jan van Brakel, a small squadron charged directly at the barrier. While English guns from the shore batteries tried to stop them, the Dutch sailors, with incredible skill and courage, smashed through the chain. The supposedly unbreakable defense was breached in a matter of minutes. Chaos erupted on the English side. There was no unified command, no clear plan. Sailors who had been laid off scrambled to get back to their ships. Officers shouted conflicting orders. The defenses they had trusted so implicitly had crumbled before their eyes. It was a scene of utter disarray. The Dutch fleet, in stark contrast, advanced in perfect formation, a relentless, disciplined force moving deeper into enemy territory. They had bypassed the forts and broken the chain. Now, the heart of the English Navy, the Chatham Dockyard, lay before them vulnerable and exposed. The Dutch fleet was now among the giants. The great English warships, laid up and defenseless, were sitting ducks. The moment for the fire ships had arrived. One by one, these floating infernos were set ablaze and guided by skeleton crews toward the anchored English vessels. The first to be engulfed was the HMS Unity. Flames licked up its wooden hull, consuming the rigging and masts in a spectacular pillar of fire. Then another fire ship crashed into the HMS Matthias, and then the HMS Carolus Quintus. The harbor turned into a vision of hell, the crackle of burning timber mixed with the thunderous explosion of gunpowder magazines. Thick, black smoke billowed into the sky, blotting out the sun. On the shore, civilians and soldiers watched in paralyzed horror. They saw their nation's pride, the symbols of its sea power, being systematically annihilated without a single shot being fired in their defense. This wasn't a battle, it was a slaughter. Amidst the inferno, the Dutch performed their most audacious act. They didn't just burn the English flagship, the Royal Charles, they captured it. Dutch Marines boarded the magnificent vessel, lowered the English flag, and towed their prize downriver. This was the ultimate humiliation, the enemy stealing the king's own ship from under his nose. The Royal Charles, with its ornate stern decoration depicting the royal crest being trampled, was taken as a trophy. The raid reached its fiery climax as more ships were set ablaze. The Royal Oak, one of the most powerful ships in the fleet, put up a desperate fight, but was eventually overwhelmed and burned to the waterline. The harbor was a graveyard of burning, sinking ships. As the sun rose the next day, it revealed a scene of absolute devastation. The tranquil waters of the Medway were now littered with the smoldering ruins of a once great fleet. Charred hulls and blackened masts jutted out of the water like grotesque skeletons. The air was thick with the stench of smoke and defeat. The financial cost was staggering, but the blow to English pride was immeasurable. In London, the news was met with disbelief, then panic. Samuel Pepys, a senior naval administrator, wrote in his diary of the terror that gripped the city. People feared the Dutch would sail right up the Thames and burn London itself. There was fury at the government, at the king, and at the naval command for allowing such a catastrophe to happen. Meanwhile, the victorious Dutch fleet made its calm and orderly withdrawal. They sailed back down the Medway, towing the Royal Charles with them, their flags flying high. They had lost no ships and suffered minimal casualties. They had executed their plan with chilling perfection, leaving behind a scene of total destruction and a nation in shock. The raid on the Medway was more than just a military victory. It was a strategic masterpiece that sent shockwaves across Europe. It forced the English to the negotiating table, ending the Second Anglo-Dutch War on Dutch terms. It served as a brutal lesson in the dangers of complacency and the importance of naval readiness. The charred remains in the Medway were a stark reminder that in warfare, the greatest defense is not a chain across a river, but constant vigilance and respect for your enemy. The humiliation of 1667 would be seared into the memory of the Royal Navy for centuries, a cautionary tale of how quickly the tide of power can turn. Thank you so much for watching. This incredible story from history shows how strategy and surprise can overcome even the most powerful defenses. If you enjoyed this deep dive into naval history, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What other historical events would you like to see us cover? Your support helps us bring these amazing moments from the past to life. Until next time, stay curious.